saying,
You're advocating for MechaGodzilla to fight Godzilla, is what you're advocating.
yes!
But now it goes. I'm keeping up with the Joneses.
Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters out there. Thank you to the Durdle Maniacs. If you want to be a Durdle Maniac, go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles and help support the channel. It keeps things going. It keeps things updated. Thanks so much for watching. On with the show. Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Blackman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Zach, you have 2 weeks until I get to countertop people again, and that's all I talk about.
Yeah, they're going to unban Sensei's Divining Top to help control. Yeah, I see that as a future that might happen.
It's the future.
I suspect that, I have many takes. And a lot of people read my takes in the article we posted on eternaldurdles.com on Monday. Obviously, on Tuesday, you saw the community takes that we all did, and Phil had his takes in there as well. But we wanted to go into a little bit more detail about Phil and my ideas about what should be banned, what should be unbanned, what changes should be made to the format, and what we think WotC will do truly based on you know what data is available. So I think the best place to start is Phil, what do you think will happen?
So I think there's enough oomph around Sowing Mycospawn that Sowing Mycospawn is just going to go, even if it doesn't have the necessary threshold in terms of volume of play. It just being a rancid experience, I think, is enough to get it out. You think you could probably just categorize it similar to where Renin 6 was, even though Renin 6 did see a lot more play because it was in the best deck at the time. The fact that like Renin 6 is not okay because it gets to loop Wastelands, and it just gives a bunch of decks that otherwise didn't have Wasteland lock access to the Wasteland lock incidentally, and that was too much. And I think that's similar argument here for Sowing Mycospawn, where even though it's not necessarily or theoretically over the line given the power level of other things that have been banned or other things that we're going to talk about, I think it's just a quality of life ban, and I think it has enough oomph right now that if they're going to take a shot on goal at anything, I think you take a shot on goal on that, and nobody is upset about it because all of the post players and all of the Eldrazi players can just play the other busted things that they have access to now, and they won't miss the thing that just gets to one-sided Armageddon opponents on turn 2. Do you want me to go beyond that?
Well, yeah. Well, let me punch in there for a second. So, I think they will be upset, but like, look, that's such a small, minute part of the overall player experience. Like, look, every ban is going to upset someone, right? Like every single time you ban or unban any card, there is going to be some subset of the player base that is upset or thinks you've ruined the format or I'll never play again, whatever. And you've suffered a blow as big as any of those bans with Sensei's Divining Top being banned, right? Here you are, right? Still playing Miracles, still playing the Legacy format. I think one of the things that I kind of put together when we were doing when I was interviewing everybody for their own ban and restricted takes was there was this back and forth about people who were like, yeah, Sowing Mycospawn definitely should go. And then there was this other subset of people who were like, I think Sowing Mycospawn should go, but I don't think WotC will do it because the numbers don't bear out that Eldrazi is the problem. But the numbers do bear out because control has dropped off the face of the planet ever since Sowing Mycospawn existed. I think WotC is smart enough to see that this is a problem in the format. And even though it's not a deck that like dominates the top tables, wins constantly, all that stuff, it is a poor player experience, and they can see that, and I do think that they're going to ban the card just based off the fact that it's not fun. And the whole idea of the format, of any format, is like player engagement, right? And so if player engagement has dropped off, look at Four Seasons, which used to have 400 people going to it every season. Now it's down to 250 or whatever. That's a significant drop off. That should tell you that the format is in a state that people aren't super happy with it. We're having trouble getting 1Ks to fire at 1K, that sort of stuff. We want to see a format that people want to be engaged with, which is, again, I'm going to call for it. We need a community panel that is full of players that are engaged in the format. And that's what Tuesday's episode was all about, is like, here are some players that are engaged in the format. Even if we don't have an actual community panel, hopefully WotC sees this and at least gets a consensus about like how people that actually play the format care about the format and what they feel versus what they think WotC will do. The reason why I ask everybody what you think will change and what you think WotC will do, because I want WotC to see that there is this sort of vote of no confidence when it comes to being able to shepherd this format. And I think that players should be shepherding the format, not people that are shepherding 4 or 5 other formats and then going, well, also, Legacy is an afterthought, or we have one person in the room that cares about Legacy, and we'll overrule them because, whatever. We just printed Grief in this new set as like a 1 in 250 per pack thing. That's nonsense. They should, if that was the metric by which they decided that Grief should have been stayed in the format 2 ban cycles ago, that's monstrously incorrect. So
I think you.
yeah, go on.
I was gonna say I think you made 2 points there that I'll dive into when you wrap up your final point. I think the argument of Sowing Mycospawn is unilaterally the reason why control doesn't really exist in any meaningful way. I think that it's sort of the poster boy for it, but I don't think that
there
it
are
is.
Other problems. Yeah.
I think that there are other problems in that Sowing Mycospawn is just the most glaring and like potent because the gameplay is so rancid. But I think that if you remove Sowing Mycospawn, the same decks that would otherwise punish somebody for just sleeving up any game that wants to go past a individual card touching the board or past turn 3 is all of the tools that Ancient Tomb has gotten, from anything in the red Stompy deck to the One Ring to Planar Nexus, making it so that turn 2 Karns and all of that are possible. Like, I think that
Orcish Bowmasters.
Well, Orcish Bowmasters Orcish Bowmasters is obviously a problem for certain things, and it's oppressing a bunch of the format. And I think overall, Bowmaster is just unhealthy because of the things that it otherwise shutters from being able to see play just as a baseline, because that card exists and is playable in the format, and therefore that means so much that would otherwise see play just cannot see play, or the format it has to speed up because you just can't play that sort of interactive game. But I think more so into I think Bowmaster is keeping out like a plethora of cards from being able to see the light of day. And it's a similar argument for Days. We've made that argument a bunch of times. We don't need to get into that right now because those cards are not going to get touched in this ban announcement. But like, if those cards went, there would be an obscene number of cards that suddenly just get unsoft banned from the format. And I think that would be a net positive for the format, even if those cards like Days or Wasteland, or I'm sorry, Days or Orcish Bowmasters aren't, quote, too good for the format, so to speak. But I think that in terms of like obsoleting or minimizing a full-on macro type from the format, like interactive control decks, they can't power creep their answers in the same way that they can power creep threats, because that's until we live in that world, that's we just have to assume that they're not going to go down that lane. So if they keep printing things that power up Ancient Tomb or power up reasons for the format to be faster, because the option is, well, I can never outgrind a One Ring, so why would I ever choose a deck that can engage on that axis? Why would I not just try and beat them before they get to One Ring, or before the One Ring runs away with the game, since the game will otherwise always be about that? If Ancient Tomb just can come down and slam something that is going to end the game on the spot because they just get to skip the first 2 turns of the game, then the options are either I play something that is just as haymakery powerful, or I play something that goes under them, which is why the format is a degenerate combo format right now. And I personally think that, like, if they wanted to help this format out, it's not just ban Sowing Mycospawn or ban One Ring, because that's just like inevitably where all of the decks go outside of Sowing Mycospawn or whatever. Like, I think there's a macro problem of Ancient Tomb oppressing another macro archetype, which is just anything wanting to go beyond turn 3. And then the impetus of that is all of the fast combo decks come in, which then cause a whole flux towards having to beat the fast combo, which speeds the format up more and more and more. And so we see like half the format being black Reanimator, because that's the most interactive combo deck that also has an I win button like on turn 2 available at all times. So if we're not going to like check Ancient Tomb because we believe it to be a pillar, then we either have to go after everything Ancient Tomb does that is like obsoleting a bunch of the format, which is like If you're a control deck, you're never doing anything more powerful than One Ring. You're just not. It just does not exist at a design level. It just doesn't. And I play a lot of control. So, if there was theoretically a panel, nobody would ever put me on it because I'd be advocating for, making the format healthy, which, is tough. But there's just no world where One Ring itself isn't the only way that control can go. And control will never be as good of a One Ring deck because One Ring would come down on turn 4. The Ancient Tunes deck put it down on turn 2. So it's like, it's just not the same battlefield because it's colorless mana. If it were 3 colors of mana, or it was, some difficult thing that Ancient Tomb couldn't just put into play super easily, then maybe it's something different. But I think that, like, even though One Ring has a little bit of heat on it, I think Sowing Mycospawn is the poster boy because it always feels bad because the game is over immediately when a Mycospawn touches. Whereas stuff with a One Ring or anything else that Ancient Tomb gets to do, like, the top decks are Combo and Ancient Tomb. Like, and until we, like, address why that is, it's like, well, the combo decks are just beating the Ancient Tomb decks because they can go under Ancient Tomb, oppressing everything else out. So but I don't think that if we want to leave Ancient Tomb as a pillar, which it seems like most people do, like,
I personally do.
Yeah, I've talked to 0 people that are like, oh yeah, let's get rid of Ancient Tomb. Like, if Daze is going to be a pillar and Ancient Tomb is going to be a pillar and the pillars that have been pillars are going to continue to pillar, then I don't think the answer is let's just become Vintage where everything is banned until, we're 56 copies of something +4 Mishra's Factory or Mishra's Workshop. Like, I think that the philosophy for there is fine for Vintage.
Yeah,
because
for Vintage,
that's wild. But for Legacy, I think the actual way to help this format is to unban a ton of things. All of the things that have been banned since before War of the Spark, and even in War of the Spark before Modern Horizons came around, I would just unban a bunch of things the way that they did in Modern. And if, like, we've seen the experiment go on in Modern, they unbanned a bunch of stuff and then it broke Breach. And they're going to ban Breach on the 31st, and then everybody will get to try out a new format to see if the cards that they, are now the pillars, so to speak, like Mox Opal and whatever, are actually still fine. And if they want to keep banning around it, they can keep banning around it. But, like, I think Legacy has been this Entomb, Reanimate, Ancient Tomb format for a couple years now, and I think we can just take a huge swing. No 1 ban, no 2 bans. Let a good chunk of the ban list out in this new world where the entire window of power has shifted. Like, so much is on the ban list that just didn't exist in a world that we're in today. And it's like, if they unbanned Mind's Desire, didn't make a dent. I want to see more of that. Let us try things like that to give players more options, give us more choices. Right now, there's no reason to do anything other than what we're doing because that's the only everything is leading in that direction. But if we had, like, I don't know, everybody's like, oh no, you can't have Deathrite Shaman in the format because it would homogenize things. I'm like, I don't know, man. Half of the top combo decks are Dread Return decks, and you have Ancient Tomb, which, makes it so that the non-Ancient Tomb decks have to go fast into combo, but maybe if there was a universal mana dork with other implications that people could play, maybe it would offset the fact that Ancient Tomb is so crazy busted. Like, who knows? Who knows? Who knows in this actual in the power level that we're in now? Who knows if that would actually be the case? But, like, unban a bunch of stuff, and if it's problems, just reban some shit. But, like, don't let us wade in.
To this.
Don't let us wade in another. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I would like to respond. Finding the right high-end cards for Legacy, Vintage, Pre-Modern, or Old School Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a Legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the Legacy community. Now back to the show.
Stop. This is my direct to everyone. Stop unchaining monsters to fight monsters. Like, let's ban the stuff that doesn't need to exist and keep all the stuff that already doesn't need to exist banned as well.
Zach, I have a question for you. I have a question.
Deathrite Shaman back in this format.
I have a question, Zach.
Yeah.
Not. First off, I just want to clarify. I'm not advocating specifically for a death rate on
Like
ban. I'm saying
you're advocating for MechaGodzilla to fight Godzilla is what you're advocating
yes.
for.
Yeah. Come on, Zach.
No.
Yes. Dude, okay, great. So what we're gonna do is while MechaGodzilla is just rampaging through all of the ravaging the entire continent of Dominaria, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna keep deploying our armies of whatever nonsense that just keeps getting destroyed by MechaGodzilla when we have Godzilla in the arsenal potentially.
So
And
what
maybe
happens when
maybe-
MechaGodzilla?
Zach, maybe MechaGodzilla puts down Godzilla and in the first shot, and it's not even a contest. But like,
Oh no!
are we really gonna leave?
Now we have to unban Rodan because
Zach, are we really gonna leave?
And then Ghidra comes out. Like, come on! You're just
We're
constantly solving problems with problems. Don't do that.
We're solving problems with problems. Zach, the entire format it's a 50+% combo format. What are we even talking about? Like, either unless we're banning 14 cards, 20 cards, like
I love this plan.
okay, like if I think that one thing that
I'm on the we should ban 8 cards. We should take a big swing and ban 8 cards. That was in my article. I said if we ban 8 cards, we get a fresh format that people can play that doesn't include unbanning a bunch of problem cards to deal with other problem cards.
Well, I'm saying that there are a lot of problem cards on the ban list that were not problem cards. They were the people who paid the cost for other cards that were the problem, that are the problem. You know, like, and I get that that's a whole philosophy shift.
Yeah,
but I'm saying that like
it is. We have 2 different philosophies on this. I agree.
But I'm saying that the world in which those cards were banned was before Modern Horizons came and destroyed everything the format, could have been. Because Modern Horizons unilaterally changed the format of every Eternal format because it was arbitrary power creep. But like,
it's
there's so many things that just happened to exist in that world. Yeah. Like, if Deathrite Shaman existed, if Deathrite Shaman came out in the same set as Ragavan and Dragon Rage Channeler, nobody's talking about it. It would not be on the chopping block.
It's interesting to think about cards that get banned. Like, I almost feel like Renin 6 was banned for the same reason that Deathrite Shaman was banned. It was just like, this card just homogenizes this type of thing, right? And so
homogenizes the homogeneity thing isn't even an argument anymore when the format is half the format is combo.
Oh yeah, I get that. I think that
if 70% of the format is in Tomb or Ancient Tomb, like if we're in a Tomb format, the homogenizing of like what homogenizing, we're playing against the same play pattern every single round. Yeah. Come
on. Here's the thing. What I think that they really ought to do is take a look at the pillars of the format. Give us a direct, these are the pillars of the format. So, and then try and solve for that. Because what we're getting is we're either constantly in Ancient Tomb world or Days world. And look, those are legitimate worlds to be in. But when you skew too much down the path of one of those two places, you end up with a format that is people aren't buying into. Like people aren't having fun playing Legacy, so then they don't go to 4 seasons and create like a large tournament structure. Of course, we did have the largest Eternal weekend ever, which was great, but that's because there was hope for the format. Like people were like, look, we know that Frog's gone. We'll get in one last hurrah with Frog. They're going to ban Frog. That's obvious. And then maybe we'll have a great format afterwards. It's also the one touchstone event every year that everyone from whatever continent they're on decides to go to. So it's one of those things where the more people get involved with Legacy, especially as we get older, it's a touchstone event that you can go to and guaranteed to be like sort of have your voice heard in the format. So I think that we're going to continue to see Eternal Weekend's numbers increase. That's not something I'm worried about. I'm worried about these satellite tournaments, the smaller tournaments, the local that I went to where it was a 1K. If we got 32 people, we had 17 people. Cut to top 8. I made top 8, guys. I'm better than half the people in the room. Come on. Hey, Legacy fans, since you're enjoying the show, please like and subscribe to the video. It helps the channel grow.
Support Eternal Durdles on Patreon so we can create even more content and cover events.
Patreons get an ad-free RSS feed, 4 bonus episodes a month, and Discord recognition. Join the Durdle Maniacs at patreon.com/eternaldurdles.
Now back to the show.
You're making me think that if the options that are the only real playable options here are we either ban a dozen cards or we unban a dozen cards or some combination of both, that like if we want to protect the pillars, that like there's probably some amount of creative ways to get around it. And the thing that comes to mind for me, because when they design ways to like handle problems in the forms of different hate cards, right? There's a bunch of hate for something that is theoretically designed to hit something like Eldrazi, but it doesn't actually operate the way intended because there's just an outlier thing that's obsoleting that. An example, Void Mirror is a card that theoretically should hose the colorless Solan deck, right? The colorless Eldrazi deck should theoretically get punished by this. And the alternative for them is to play basics or other forms of mana-producing lands that don't tax what they're trying to do, or I'm sorry, that do tax what they're trying to do as a way to offset the fact, like they have to make a concession because they have to respect this hate piece that otherwise blows. Like that is what hate is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to require the person being hated to shift around, to buoy around it, and then we have this sort of dance where we're trying to figure out who's going to do what and how we're doing it. That is the purpose of a hate card, right? But like those types of cards just can't function because, hear me out, there's things like Cavern of Souls that exist. And like if Cavern of Souls, now granted, is Cavern of Souls something on the block? Not even remotely, right? Nobody but us has brought up Cavern of Souls in a meaningful way. But like in a lot of ways, Cavern of Souls is a significant problem of propelling decks that are otherwise quote unquote unhealthy to have in large numbers for positive and healthy gameplay, because it just removes the need for the other person to be there, or it obsoletes points of interaction that have been designed to be ways to interact with a given thing. Like it being a mana fixing thing, that it's not like they need the colored mana, but the fact that it makes the colored mana for free while also getting this upside of blanking an entire card quality. Maybe that's a card that goes, and then maybe that like hate all of a sudden is playable, and then the decks that are like, it's like if Sowing Mycospawn isn't getting its green mana off of Cavern of Souls, like, and they have to go towards something else, maybe that, you know what I mean? I don't know, but I'm saying that like if they really wanted to dance around, like you dance around on something that maybe opens up, like essentially you can't play something like Void Mirror because Cavern of Souls exists, right? So if you were to release something like that sort of hate being to be playable, like the thing is that still feels so tentative. It still feels so light and touch and go,
It's also like, who cares about a 3/3 hitting the board, Phil? Like that, those are cast triggers. That's what we care about. We care about you casting 2 Stone Rains. Like sure, you get your 3/3. I don't care. Like I'll block your 3/3 with stuff later on. I don't like 3 damage doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it's the fact that it's cast triggers. It's the problem to me. But I get what you're talking about with Cavern of Souls. But I
want to just point out that my argument there isn't saying like, oh, Cavern of Souls is the thing, and therefore like all this other stuff. It's just an example of going after cards.
Symptom,
going after cards that otherwise obsolete something else from being a possible answer to something, right? Like we can't play something because this thing exists. So remove the cards that are oppressing stuff from being playable, and then maybe the stuff that now is playable does make an impact, and enough of an impact that players can actually interact in a way that from before where they couldn't. It's like remove the gatekeepers essentially.
Yeah. Another take. So Phil, what's your take on the Reanimator problem? How do you think WotC should deal with the Reanimator problem? Do you think it's a problem at
all? I think that the way to get rid of the Reanimator problem, there's an argument that like if you're gonna go after, like if you're like we just really want to solve this, you got to go after Entomb. Unless you're willing to ban every fatty from now until forever, that just becomes the best thing to be doing, because like unless you get rid of Atraxa and Grizzlebrand and every other fatty that you ever print, because no fatty that you ever print is ever being cast. Like they need to know that when they design the overwhelming gigantic fatty, that type of creature is always going to cost 1 or 2. It never costs 7 and 8, 9, 10 mana. It doesn't. It costs 1 mana. It costs 2 mana. So unless they're just like, okay, cool, we want to protect Entomb Reanimate as a play pattern, and so we just are going to voluntarily get rid of all these fatties, that seems nonsensical. Like they that would be such accepting that like, yep, Bazaar of Baghdad is around, and we're just going to accept that Bazaar of Baghdad exists in the format, and not touch that. But like, that's not what Legacy is. At least to the same extent, right? Like that sort of overwhelming, like the entire deck is this one card or this one play pattern. So I think that like you have to go after Entomb because it's the unique thing. If you go after Reanimate, it's not going to change enough.
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of Reanimate. Like yes, you slow it down. They can't go turn 1, turn 2. You know what card gets really good when you have to like move somebody's curve from 1 to 2 mana? Daze. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just like you're if we're gonna promote, if we're going to try and solve symptoms by not fighting it, if we're not going to let Godzilla out to fight MechaGodzilla, like you don't want the medicine of something to be something else that's otherwise toxic to a format. So I think you just if you wanted to solve the problem, you just get rid of Entomb.
So the way I see the Reanimate problem is there are 4 answers, 4 possible answers, right? Entomb, an obvious answer. Reanimate, an answer for sure.
I just don't think it is. I don't think Reanimate is.
Well, I'm just saying there are 4 possible solutions to this, right? That WotC can go. Entomb or Reanimate, not both. Then they can choose Troll of Khazad-dûm is a card that people have called for. And or you could go the fatty route and be like, hey, Atraxa is the thing that makes this deck too good. People were able to answer other threats, but Atraxa is the thing that like lets you get back into the game after people have an answer. Those are the four possible points that I see as being options. Okay, so I would choose Entomb myself because slotting everything into like a tempo package by like taking like out 12 cards from the tempo package and just playing like your 4 Reanimates, a couple of either Metamorphosis Fanatic or Animate Dead, and then your 2 fatties and your 4 Entombs. Entomb is the thing that ties the room together there and allows you to just be this degenerate combo deck that slots into a fair tempo deck that you have basically your own plan that you just get to do. Now, that's why I think that Entomb should go. Now, there are arguments for Reanimate because Entomb is used in other decks, apparently. Who cares, in my opinion? But people are like, oh, you can't like screw Black Saga Storm that they use Entomb to get Echo of Eons. I don't care about that. You're doing unfair stuff with Echo of Eons also, But there's arguments to remove Reanimate because there are other Reanimate effects at 2 mana, like you had said, that die to daze and stuff like that. And I think that could be fine if they choose that path as well. Now, getting rid of Troll of Khazad-dûm is interesting because that also hits. It does 2 things. It hits the fair tempo decks that are playing Troll of Khazad-dûm and Reanimate, just as like I'm playing Reanimate and I'm also good against Reanimate decks now, and I do have this like free Troll of Khazad-dûm thing. They're playing 17 lands to basically like being able to play their wastelands to get colored mana off of their Troll of Khazad-dûm. So that would make any deck that's playing Troll of Khazad-dûm that wants that effect still to either play like Oliphant or what's called Generous Ent to get that same effect. But now they're susceptible to Wasteland in a way that they weren't before. So I'm kind of okay with that. Or if they want to try some other nonsense land cycler or something like that, that's fine too. There are several. There's a couple of cards that like just cycle for like 1 blue mana or something like that. They've kind of figured out that is a playable way to play the deck. But I think that doing that at least makes that deck susceptible to Wasteland, so it's fine as well. All 4 of these, by the way, are acceptable to me. Removing Atraxa as like the ultimate fatty to get right now would be fine, but I do feel like that to me is like, so why to get rid of Atraxa? Because it pitches to Force of Will. It doesn't like your life total isn't an issue when you play Atraxa. You just like have this creature that like has vigilance, so they can't even attack into it after you swing. If they're able to like block and sack or something like that, you still have it back as a blocker to gain your life back and everything. But the fact that it pitches to Force of Will is yet another problem with that card. And I do understand the problem with like, let's get rid of the best fatty in the deck because you're just always like moving the goalpost to the next best fatty as that happens. but the Reanimate deck used to play like 6 or 7 different targets, like Tidespout Tyrant or Archon, Blazing Archon, stuff like that. And I would like to see Reanimate as a more dedicated deck that has to play the like Sphinx of the Steelwind and stuff like that to try and like dodge what's it called, surgical extraction. Now, surgical extraction is just a one-off thing.
If they want to get rid of,
You were about to say.
In the same way, if they are interested in exploring the route of, okay, Ragavan is gone because of Days of Sins, Deathrite Shaman is gone because of Fetchland Sins, Dreadheart Arcanist is gone because of the Days Wasteland shell that it was in, Psychic Frog now is gone because it was in the Days Wasteland version of this Reanimator deck. Like, if there's going to be a bunch of stuff on the block for Days, which is theoretically the pillar that they've been protecting by getting rid of all these other things, then you could argue that if they want to just navigate that and then state, yes, Entomb Reanimate, this play pattern is a pillar, and therefore we are going to protect it because we consider it part of the thing that you can do in Eternal formats, okay, cool. Then you have to go after Atraxa, you have to go after Grizzlebrand, you have to go after everything that we're not thinking of that would otherwise make the game obsolete from this play pattern, because otherwise this will always just continue to be the best thing to do, because we're at the point where everything is so consolidated and clean. But I want to talk about the possibility of, okay.
Well, yeah, let me pull on that for a second, because you do have, if that is your philosophy to protect the pillars, and you decide that these like Reanimate or Entomb are the pillars, then you have to go after the symptoms to protect the pillars.
Yeah, and if that's the route that they're like, this is the route we want to go down, fam. We want to protect Ancient Tomb. We're going to ban, these 8 cards. We want to protect Reanimator, that strategy as a thing that you can do, and we're going to ban all the stuff that makes it so that it can't just slot this clean package into any other deck. It has to, whatever, blah blah blah. Cool. If that's the route that they want to go down, at least they have stated what they are. At least they have a philosophy. That then we have to embrace that philosophy because they're the ones who get to decide it. I think, though, now, if we are talking about, okay, we want to get this Entomb Reanimate package away from being the best deck, and the implications of that are not just, okay, if we get rid of Entomb, then that deck falls off. It's what decks are otherwise now unlocked, and then what do they do? And speaking of somebody who is on the control side of the spectrum here, and control having a lot of problems because of everything that we just talked about regarding Ancient Tomb, the thing, one thing that the Entomb Reanimate fast combo is doing is dictating the kind of Ancient Tomb that can be played. If you were to get rid of Entomb Reanimate, another swath of another way that Ancient Tomb gets to play is with Initiative. Now, if Initiative comes back in force because there isn't Entomb Reanimate to sort of check it at the start of a tournament before people even show up, then I don't anticipate the control macro type somehow, like even if you ban Sowing Mycospawn, if you were to ban Sowing Mycospawn and Entomb and just let all of Initiative resurge itself back into the format, if like Initiative and Monarch and all these other things that you can't otherwise interact with, like if that comes back into the foray as something that Ancient Tomb can do really powerfully on top of the One Ring that it would just move to, like control is not going to suddenly have a pleasant time where it gets to operate again. Like it just won't. Like the tools, the requisite tools to combat those things aren't there. Like somebody might say, oh, but control players have consign memory. Consign has not been enough to stop Sowing Mycospawn. It's not going to be enough to stop Initiative either. Like if they go down this route of like, yes, we're going to get rid of Entomb, they have to go towards what do we know are the implicit things that will come back from that decision or happen because of that decision. And that's where I advocate, like, they got to go down the route of we can't just ban one thing. We gotta go after a dozen things if we're gonna try and clean up the format from just being different shades of what it is right now. So like I think if they wanted to get rid of Entomb to keep all else equal, whatever, then you just gotta get rid of the same way that they got rid of all stickers and attractions. You gotta get rid of all Initiative if you want to get you want to protect everything that's in the format. Whatever you like, unban a bunch of stuff. Like we have to see huge moves. It can't be a singleton card or 2 cards. This ban announcement, if they want the format to look anything different than what it's looked like for the past 2 years, it's got to be seismic.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to stop right there. Obviously you're the viewer, have a ton of opinions about this. I'd like to see them in the comments below. What do you think should go? what cards do you think should be unbanned? So with that said, thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget, if you want to write for EternalDurdles.com, hit up Phil on all the socials. We'll get that taken care of for you.
If you want to make your argument as to what you think should go, you hopefully you've read Zach's article that he put out there about everything that he wants to go and why. If you want that, write it, ship it to me. I will get it up before the bans actually are announced on the 31st. If you can get it to me by the end of this week, give me at least a couple of days to turn it around, and I will turn it around. Everybody in the Legacy community, everybody in the Vintage community, the pre-modern community, any Eternal format you would like to write about, you are welcome to write about it and have it published on EternalDurdles.com. So hit me up.
Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the Legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/EternalDurdles. Thanks so much for watching.